and joining me now from our Perth studio is broadcaster, columnist and Sky contributor Jenna Clarke. And that's actually underselling you, Jenna. You're also a host now after your rockstar performance last weekend. I think I'm just keeping this chair warm for you.
Oh, stop. No, Kath, it's so good to end my week with you, that's for sure. I started it at Sky, filling in for the wonderful Sharry Marks, and it's wonderful to finish it with you.
Well, mutual. I had the AZ jab this week, so I'm fatigued, but you've just lit up my evening. So, hey, look, cutting to the chase quickly. You've been on one side of a hard border closure most of the last 12 months. Have you been a little surprised at the politics of the India border closure? The government cracked down pretty hard, probably a little too hard, I suspect, by declaring jail penalties. That seemed to offend people across the spectrum. I'm just wondering what you made of the politics of that, because it looks as though they've softened their rhetoric in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, indeed, Kath. And look, considering I've been living on the other side of the iron ore curtain for the better part of 18 months right now, it's been really fascinating to see how COVID has sort of transpired from a health emergency into a political campaign, obviously in the run-up to the WA state election that we had in March. And I think this week, whilst all of the terror that we were seeing coming out of India, and we see the horrible cases and the vision that we see out of there every night is just absolutely deplorable and horrible, and we want to do everything we can to help not only the locals but also help our 9,000 Aussies be repatriated as safe and as soonly as possible. I think one thing I saw specifically this week was probably our Premier Mark McGowan almost take like a sigh of relief, going, okay, it's back on the feds. I can focus on dealing with my own COVID emergency here at home, where we had a bit of a lockdown a couple of days ago, which small business were kind of clutching their straws and their pearls, going, oh, we don't know how much longer we can take this uncertainty if you're going to shut us down for one case. But I think that the politics have played out to the point where I think you'd expect that now. I think Australians are getting COVID fatigue, and I guess we have been so safe for so long, and the government at all levels and states and territories have done a wonderful job keeping us all safe. But I think when it comes down to it, your passport and your citizenship means that you are taken care of as an Australian first and foremost, and you shouldn't be thrown in jail by trying to come home to your home country. So I think the politics played out as to be expected, and I'm kind of proud that there was a bit of uproar about it.
I must say I join you on that, in that I was, I'm a bit of a black letter strict legalist on the interpretation of the Constitution. So I always felt that the border closures, intercourse being absolutely free under Section 92, I thought it was appalling the way the states behaved, and I thought it was cowardly of the federal government not to oppose that. It's I think the Prime Minister, having seen the Premiers leverage that so effectively, thought the same thing would happen. But the debate certainly did seem to hinge on this concept that, hey, wait a minute, what's the point of being a citizen if you may not be repatriated home during a crisis? What's your passport worth? Why call yourself an Australian? Like you, I was pleasantly surprised that there was some furor surrounding that, I must say, and I think the government misread it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we saw it here with Scott Morrison. He was in town just a couple of weeks ago, and he'd been missing from WA for more than 500 days. Obviously, COVID didn't help, and he just didn't want to send the wrong message of him being traversing, through those borders and things like that during a really unsteady time. But even here, his rhetoric was very much reminiscent of Mark McGowan. We want to keep you safe. We want to keep you strong. It was around the economy and also the health crisis. But I think they completely misread the way that this India issue had arisen. And I think the fact that I think there's a very funny sketch going around on the internet today saying when you lose the cricketers, you lose the country. And I think they definitely did that this week.
Yes, well, and despite Michael Slater just about outdoing the Magda Zabansky read the room tweet, but even that wasn't enough to keep him out of trouble. But look, next week, of course, the budget offers the government a chance to restore some kind of I hate to use the term reset because it triggers all the QAnon maddies who do tune in occasionally, but it does offer an opportunity to reset the agenda, having, to some extent, having lost control of the narrative for most of this calendar year since the allegations surrounding the case of Ms Brittany Higgins and also the allegations about the Attorney General. There's been this perception that the government's out of touch, has a woman problem. What do you think might be the main elements of the budget to look for next week? Do you see Obviously, they're going to keep spending. What do you think we should be looking for?
It's going to be like if you close your eyes and you don't watch the Treasurer Josh Frydenberg take to the dispatch box on Tuesday night, you almost think that it's going to be a Labor-style budget with the amount of spending that they're going to be doing. But I think it's completely necessary in these times. Obviously, we're on the triangle of the recovery must incur a lot of spending to ensure that the lower and middle income earners are rightfully stimulated in their hip pocket, so they can get out, buy a house, contribute to their local economy in any which way possible, and we'll probably see that in very welcome tax cuts for them, which will be extended. And then also I think we're definitely going to see something in this for women, as we saw with the drop that we got on Sunday around childcare and things like that. Unfortunately, it probably doesn't go far enough for some people that want complete reform of things like that to help get more women back into the workforce. Things like after-school care and out-of-school care aren't included in that yet. But fingers crossed that the Prime Minister's new Ministry for Women can continue to beat the drum for things like that, and we'll see more progress as more budgets unfold.
And of course, one complication with that attempt to reposition the government was that Amanda Stoker was unsuccessful in her attempt to get a more winnable seat on the Senate ticket in Queensland. Did that outcome surprise you?
Yeah, but look, I always find that the similarities between I think the coalition is such a different beast in every state and territory around the country, and so I don't think you can compare. It's like comparing apples to oranges when you look at the feds and then you look at the grassroots stuff, like you see the LNP in Queensland and the Liberals over here in WA, as depleted and as they are over here at this point in time. But I was shocked that Amanda was bumped to number 3, but I guess the one way I read it, and it's probably completely incorrect, and I don't want to sound like some crazy feminazi or whatever, but Amanda's been incredibly busy getting out on the front foot campaigning for the coalition values at a federal level. She's been incredibly successful assuming that shadow ministry in the Senate and working really hard in the Senate. Meanwhile, the person that's taken the number 1 job, sure, he may be very well regarded around the local branches around Queensland because he can continue to beat the drum around Fortress Queensland because he's had the time to do it. So I think it's pretty unlucky that she hasn't been given that number 1 spot. But I think her talent might be a little bit wasted in the Senate. I wouldn't be surprised if she appears on the lower house ticket when we see pre-selections for those open up pretty soon.
I think that's a pretty good call, actually, in that obviously Laming won't be re-endorsed, and I think the seat of Morton may become available, so she may make a translation into the lower house. But look, final one to close on. This is a somewhat parochial WA question, but national implications. The Special Air Service Regiment's very dear to the hearts of people around Perth especially, and WA feels a sense of ownership. Are you hearing anything out of Swanbourne about the impact of these notices? I heard another wave of them were served this week. Is there a sense in WA that the Special Air Service Regiment's a bit under siege and a bit demoralised?
Yeah, definitely. I think we don't really hear a lot there because that community and that fraternity are quite tight knit. So when things sort of occur within those ranks, they sort of close in a little bit further. I know that they heavily rely on the support of Canning MP Andrew Hastie, who also served in the SAS, and he holds something that he holds very near and dear to his heart. So I know that they definitely have his ear as well, and he's very attuned to what they're going through and things like that. But look, I think the best that we can do as a West Australian community is, regardless of what happens at these inquiries and things like that, we have to also, first and foremost, these people put their hand up to serve our country and put themselves and their families through what must be unimaginable stress and for things to fight for our sovereignty and things like that. So we'll wrap our arms around them, whatever happens, and I think we'll just sort of watch and wait and see what happens and report on what we hear, whether we can verify it out of Swanbourne or not. So it's going to be a really interesting time, but we just hope that the families and those that are serving, that they have previously served, get the support that they need.
Well said, and we'll talk again soon. Earlier over there, so you've got a great night out ahead of you, and for a dear old 65-year-old, I'm off to bed. I'll see you later, Jenna. Thanks for joining us.
I'm going to go get rid of this mask. Thanks so much, Kath.